and to find common ground across nations. This session, the role of translation in promoting peace among countries, brings together distinguished scholars, poets, and translators from around the world to reflect on how translation can be a force for harmony. Chairing this session is the celebrated poet, writer, and academic, Shri Subodh Sarkar. He is the author of 45 books and has been honored with the Sahitya Akademi Award. His works have been widely translated and he has served on key national literary bodies. May I request you to join us on the dais, please? Ariel Florencia Richards is a Chilean poet, novelist, and essayist whose work explores themes of identity, culture, and society. Kindly join us on the dais, please, Florencia. She's the recipient of prestigious fellowships and is recognized as one of the strong literary voices of Latin America. She is the author of 2 best-selling novels. The second one was a super hit, The Waves Are the Same and Unfinished. Guillermo Rodriguez, kindly join us, is the founding director of Casa de la India, the pioneering Indian cultural center in Spain. He is an eminent scholar, author, translator, and cultural manager. He has to his credit 25 publications spanning Indian English literature aesthetics, bhakti literature, and literary criticism. His publications include Where Mirrors Are Windows, a view of A.K. Ramanuja's poetics. Pha Thi Thu Hien is a leading Vietnamese scholar of Indian literature. I request you to join us on the dais, please. She has over 35 years of research and teaching to her credit and is the author of noted monographs, including the poetic characteristics of the epic Mahabharata. Tanishta Dansel. She is a Thai academic translator and cultural ambassador of Indian literature in Southeast Asia. She has contributed to major literary exchange initiatives and introduced modern Indian literature to Thai readers. Vibha Maurya is a distinguished translator and professor of Hispanic Studies at Delhi University. She's written retired, but professors don't retire. Kindly join us on the dais, please. She has translated major works of Spanish and Latin American literature into Hindi, building cross-cultural literary bridges. Shri Vijay Kumar Tadakkamalla is a noted Telugu poet, critic, and translator. His works emphasize cross-cultural understanding, and he has translated both Indian and global voices into Telugu. I hand the mic over to the chair.
Good afternoon to all of you. So it's translation and peace, as I understand from the title. So it's very difficult to talk about peace right at this moment. And it's so difficult to talk about peace. We think that we are going to talk about peace very peacefully, but it doesn't happen. And if you look at the global politics, if you look at the global situation, we find a lot of countries are burning with, there is no negotiation, there is a promise of peace everywhere, but peace is not working. And this is a terrible time that we have been going through. And at the same time, we are claiming, we the poets, we have the, we are the unacknowledged legislators. So we have to talk about peace. They make a lot of summits, a lot of meetings, a lot of negotiations, a lot of agreements. But I don't know what is going to happen. But I just, as he has written a brilliant book and he has published from the Penguin, this Ramanujan book, yeah. And we are just discussing, there is a fantastic poem by Ramanujan and the older version. And he said where in that poem, the poets be aware, poets are in danger. We the writers, we the poets, we are really in danger. What you are going to say is going to be counted. And what they are saying, okay, they will drop missile, they will drop bomb. They are now selling weapons, and they are not bothered. But we are bothered. We think about our friends. We think about our mothers. We think about our fathers and brothers and everyone. The writers have the responsibility. And that's why, we have been asked to talk about peace again and again. My question is that when I started writing poems as a young boy at school, when I started, I didn't know about peace. I didn't know about war. I just wanted to write a love poem about the girl who cheated me. But I really wanted to have a love poem. And so I didn't make any war with her. I let her go. And she was very happy. I was not happy. I was writing my poems, and that's good that I was not happy. And that's possibly, it is because of that I started writing. So in a way, I find the poets, most of the poets of the world, she is from the land of Neruda. Neruda gave his life for making peace. And you just think about when President Allende was assassinated, what happened to him? Just after 11 days, he died. The entire, the population of Chile wanted Pablo Neruda to become the president of Chile. He said no. But finally, he could not manage the trauma, when the President Allende was assassinated. And then it was a terrible disaster. So there was no peace. But we have to have our poems, our music, our literature, our translations. These are all meant for peace. We have to write for peace. We cannot, no writer in this world, even when you think about the seafarers in the old period, even the people, those who fought in Persian War or in any, old war, even so many writers, so many intellectuals participated in peace, and they didn't want to go for war, but they were forced to. Even the ancient Greeks were also forced to go to the war. Even so many American poets were forced to go to Vietnam War. I still remember Yusuf Komunyakaa, the Pulitzer Prize winner. He was forced to go to Vietnam to fight the war. I met him and he was crying. He told me in Calcutta, sitting in my room, "Oh, Subodh, you don't know what a terrible experience I had in Vietnam." And still he is alive. He is now teaching in New York City, in New York University. So the point is that the poets of the world, you just think about Tagore. With this I will conclude my this small little speech to begin with. So think about Tagore. He he globalized a small little village called Shantiniketan. And he had fights with a lot of people. He had to make people understand that what Shantiniketan was meant for. So it was a village which was a kind of, the center of poetry, of literature. But at the back of his mind, it was peace, because the Second World War was also, it was everywhere. Even the impact of the Second World War, even it reached Shantiniketan. So he was helpless. He was writing to Einstein. He was writing to Romarola. He was writing letters everywhere. He was in China. Peace, for peace. A whole life he dedicated. His life was dedicated only to being in peace. But even after that, we had a lot of strife, a lot of conflict, a lot of problems, a lot of crisis. But the last word is that a poet, a translator, or a writer, or an essayist, he or she has to continue with his no agenda, but his love, his heart for peace. So I'm going to believe that the distinguished panelist, international panelist that I am not, what I am saying that the international panelists on this panel this afternoon are going to talk about translations and about peace in connection with peace. And I believe that translation is a way to peace. So I should begin with, let me have the list. Is it here? Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you. Yeah, first is, no, not first. No, already I have spoken. You can be second, Okay, fine. So let us begin with Spain. And he has a lot of experiences all over the world, especially at Shantiniketan. And he was just telling me that he came to Shantiniketan, he had a nice time at Tagore's center. And they have also a Tagore Center in Spain, right? And so it's very difficult to pronounce his name correctly, but I am trying. I learned it from him. Guillermo Rodriguez. So he is going to speak about translation, the role of translation in promoting peace, maybe all in the international context, or whatever he likes.
Thank you. Thank you for translating my name. It's interesting because my name is, guess what in English? William. William. French Guillaume, Guglielmo in Italian, so it also changes. How much time do we have now? 5 minutes or?
No, 10 minutes.
Okay.
We have 2 hours, right? So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 10 minutes each, and then we'll decide. Again, maybe 5 minutes or...
Okay. Thank you. Yes, may I? Okay. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here among these distinguished authors and writers, translators, critics, and also with this distinguished audience. Since I was trained as a linguist, I always like to start analyzing words and what they mean, because that's already a translation in your brain. And I'm not going to discuss what peace means, whether it is ahimsa or whether it is peace, because there's a lot of discussion about what peace actually is. Is it non-violence? Is it active, passive, whatever? But since I did my PhD on A.K. Ramanujan, he was an expert, not only expert translator, but a pioneer in a theory of translation. So if you look at the word translation, it means to carry across, trans. So it is embedded, the idea is embedded of carrying something from A to B. So what do you carry across? You carry across words, meanings. That is, you have to work in different alphabets sometimes, or you have to work with the signifiers. And sometimes if the language is synthetic or analytic, it turns out to be much longer than in the original language. You transfer meanings, but all of this is not possible if you transfer some of the context. You need to have and you can be quite radical about this. Ramanujan said you have to translate the reader, not the text. So there are various approaches. How much of the context should I translate? If I translate the Bhakti poems of the Virashaiva, should I translate it in such a way that it is read in a fresh kind of modernist manner as he did, so that the Western audience would understand the tone, or how should I translate? So context is very important, because in a larger sense, translators have to keep in mind always, and you're bilingual or trilingual, or you embed it in a culture, and you know that culture. And the act of translation is always negotiation, because you negotiate with those meanings, those words, and with the context. So you're constantly struggling within yourself. First of all, because if you have an original beautiful poem, you have to sort of recreate a new poem. You have to create a new poem. It has to come alive again. And the best examples are the most successful ones. You mentioned Rabindranath Tagore, our Nobel Prize winner Juan Ramon Jimenez, who also got the Nobel Prize, achieved that because when you read the translations, they come alive in Spanish. He brings in the Spanish lyricism and ethos. Translators negotiate. And when you negotiate, as Ramanujan said, you're always at a loss when you count your change. Something's always lost. And you need to abandon. You can't be always, it's impossible to have a perfect translation. That is why intrinsically, translators as negotiators, and the best negotiators, are the best equipped people to negotiate between cultures, diplomacy, and achieve that which we would like to achieve is understanding. First of all, understanding rather than peace, understanding. Look at the diplomats when they meet. They have a translator with them. And you can I've been around with diplomats for quite long, and sometimes the funniest stories happen if the translators don't know the context. It can be hilarious. And the most difficult thing to translate is what, usually? Humor. Humor, because something may not be funny at all. You crack a joke, a typical ironic British joke, it just doesn't work in Spanish or Chinese or Japanese. It just doesn't work because there's so much context. So you have to know the context. This other beautiful metaphor is of the story of the Mongolian emperor who wanted, in Siberia, he wanted to he wanted to take the bird in a cage because he loved, what's that beautiful song? I want that bird. I wanted to bring it to my palace. So the person who's looking after the birds, he says, but we can't put the bird in a cage because if you want to carry the bird to the palace, you need to carry along also the room and the garden where it is, actually in the tree. And if you carry the tree, you have to carry the garden. If you carry the garden, you have to carry the jungle and the entire country. So, Lord, or, sir, can you do that? You will not be able to carry the feeling, the entire ecosystem of that song to your place. But maybe you can recreate it. I mean, this is a metaphor to say that it's limited to a particular time, space, and ecosystem. And let's not forget also that translators also travel within time. Especially if you work with classics. Viba has done an amazing work. Imagine to translate Don Quixote. You have to work not just with the horizontal but the vertical of traveling in time. You know, what is understood, but the amazing thing about some works of art which are written by genius is that it's still so fresh. And we did a version of Don Quixote in Kathakali. Imagine, Kathakali is a South Indian Kerala theatre. We used several extracts of the stories, and this was even a third type of translation where you translate from novel to theatre in a live performance. And I want to use this as a short, brief example of beautiful way of contributing to the understanding of a way of understanding culture as having no borders. Imagine very traditional, classically trained Kathakali actors in Kerala. First of all, they didn't know the story. They had heard of it, so they had to read the story. Then they had to work with a theatre director, and the play had to be written in the Attakata style, in the traditional script of Kerala. And then the actors had to understand the nuances. And what happened is, they were brilliant actors. Neliud was a Nambudri. He had been steeped in the epics, and the Sancho Panza was done by Vijaya Kumaran. And the way they brought the characters to life in their understanding of the idea of what justice, universal justice, which was very interesting because they used some social component in there as well. So justice and the meaning of life to bring good, what Don Quixote Quijano wanted to change the world. He was a fighter for peace, if you want. But at the end of the play, when we were showing this in Mexico and in Spain, the audience was overwhelmed. They had never seen the end, when Quijano dies in his deathbed, an interpretation of Quixote where the main character is reaching samadhi, enlightenment. Because the ultimate achievement of good versus evil for the Hindu context is illumination, enlightenment. So they added a new dimension to the entire ecosystem of Quixote. So when you translate something, you're also enriching that piece of work. When Garcia Marquez is translated from Colombian, and you see the Colombian jungle, and then you translate it into Kerala, that work is also enriched. Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude is enriched by the translation. So I see translation as an organic way of learning and adding between cultures. And in this negotiation, you lose, but you win, because it is not intangible. You're adding to both sides. Anyway, this is just some thoughts.
Thank you so much. Now, let us have the Russian version of what we are planning to discuss today. I invite Irina. She's not here? Huh? Vietnam, I'm sorry. No? Lost in translation. No, it's written in translation. We have, it is printed here, we have Irina from Russia, then we have Vietnam, then we have Thailand, then we have Irina? She's not here. I'm confused. Right. This one? Phan Thi Thu Hien. I'm not sure about how to pronounce this name. She's from Vietnam. A big round of applause for her. Please come. If you can, 10 minutes, 12 minutes you can. Please come.
Good afternoon. I would like to present about translated Indian literature in Vietnam and its role to promoting peace between nations. Yeah. Indian literature began to be translated in Vietnam in the 1920s. And over the past 100 years, about 100 Indian literary work has been translated and published in Vietnam. In comparison with Chinese, Japanese, and Korean literature, the number of translated Indian literature work is quite modest. But fortunately, most of the famous Indian classic and author have been translated in Vietnam. For example, about regarding Hindu classic, Veda, Upanishad, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Panchatantra, and Kalidasa have been translated and introduced in Vietnam. And for example, Veda, Upanishad, and Ramayana, Mahabharata, and this is translated by me. And Bhagavad Gita and many anthology of Indian mythology and Panchatantra, story of Vetala, Indian fountains, and Ocean of Story, Indian fountains. And regarding Buddhist literature, Dhammapada and Jataka have been translated and published many times. And regarding classic literature, Meghaduta Kalidasa and Sakuntalabai Kalidasa have been translated. Indian medieval literature with a great flow of Bhakti literature introduced to a few poems in anthology. And this is some anthology of Indian literature. And this is my anthology. And about Indian modern literature, Gandhi, Nehru, and Tagore has been introduced in Vietnam and the attention of reader. Gandhi autobiography and this Discover of India by Nehru and memoir by Nehru. And many work by Tagore. Up to now, Tagore has been the foreign writer whose work have been translated the most in Vietnam. Yeah, many works by Tagore. And novels and short story and essays. Modern Indian literature work translated and introduced are mainly under realist literature, Premchand, Narayan, and Anand, etc. For example, and in the 21st century, work of authors who have won prestigious international awards, such as Man Booker or Nobel, were translated quickly and introduced. For example, Napol, Samarosdi, Arundari Toy, and Kisan Desai, Aravind Aginda, and etc. In short, Indian literature translated in Vietnam in the past 100 years is still modest. And fortunately, some of the most representative masterpieces, some of the most prominent authors have been featured. And influence of Indian translated literature on Vietnam-India relationship. Buddhism is one of the two largest religions in Vietnam. However, the number of Buddhists does not account a very high proportion. It is about 15 of the population. And the percentage of Hindu in Vietnam is not significant. So that I think classic work of Hinduism and Buddhism influence in Vietnam, not on religion, but mainly on philosophy and ethics. The famous Hindu and Buddhist classic India have the Ramayana story not only translated in text, but presented in dance, drama, robam of the Khmer people in the southern Vietnam, as well as in Cheo and Cải Lương play, theater in the theater of the Vietnamese or King people. And Zataka story portrayed in the mural of Buddhist temple in the north, in the southern of Vietnam. And Gandhi, Nehru, Tagore are admired primarily as nationalists. And the work of Gandhi and Tagore are loved by both Buddhist and Christian, and can be interpreted according to their world perspective. For Vietnamese people, Gandhi is a symbol of goodness, and Nehru is a symbol of truth, and Gandhi is a symbol of beauty. And through our survey of articles on Indian literature on Vietnamese scholar in the Journal of Literature Study during 50 years, total we have 48 papers. This is a modest, very modest number. Research on Indian literature is still quite modest in comparison with the study of other major literature. And a fairly large proportion of papers on Indian traditional literature focus on epic, and a fairly large proportion of papers on Indian modern literature focus on Tagore. And research topics are not diverse and comprehensive. And through our survey of monograph essay on Indian literature that have been published in Vietnam, there are about 3 books, and most monograph on Tagore and epic. Tagore and epic, and Tagore. And this is my monograph on Indian classic poetic and Indian classic aesthetic. In 1983, the Indian literature included in major literature major at many universities in Vietnam. And from 1991, Indian literature included in textbook for high school students. This is textbook. Conclusion, translation and introduction of Indian literature. Vietnam over the past 100 years has developed along with the growth of the friendly relationship between the two nations. And Indian translation into literature in Vietnam contribute to building the image of Indian nation and promoting mutual understanding and cooperation between India and Vietnam. And I think it's necessary to promote cooperation between Vietnam and India to enhancing to promoting translation of Indian literature. And thank you.
Check, 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 check. Thank you, madam. We are really happy to have known a lot of Indian works of literature are done in Vietnamese, and the classical, the medieval, and also modern, and mostly Tagore. And it's no wonder. It's beautiful that India exists in Vietnam, in a way. Thank you so much. I just give you one anecdote. I was in Peking University last year. To my utter surprise, I came to know that how Tagore is still a force, a cultural force, a peacemaking force, a translation force, a human force. A minister who came to our party, it's a literary party, at night, followed by lunch, dinner. But what happened, you know? That minister came close to me and told me, I have forgotten the name of the minister. I remember only the names of the poets of the world. I can't remember the names, other names. So he told me almost in whispers that, you know, there is a poem by Tagore I read in my school. This poem is called Du Bigha Jomi. Those who are Bengalis, they are acquainted with this poem. It was a poem about the land crisis in the district of Birbhum. And the poem, the minister told me, we came to learn about the land crisis in China through this poem. And as as a child, he remembered that poem. I was taken aback. I asked him, do you mean it? Tagore had a lot of difficulties in China. The revolutionary young boys, picking university students, they protested against the spirituality that Tagore was talking about at the time when the whole world was reeling under the threat of, war again and again. So I believe the translation can work like that. It can be the experience of West Bengal, of India, and it can go to China and can inspire the people to think about their own crisis. This is translation, this is poetry, and this is why the poets are again and again asked to talk about peace and translation. Now I request, no, I am not going to make any mistake about the countries. Are you sure? So now, Thailand, our neighbor, almost our neighbor, Tanisha, dance sleep, right? Okay. Tanisha or Tanisha?
Tanita or Tanisha, you can.
Both.
Yeah.
Tanisha is an Indian name.
Yes, it's a Sanskrit name.
It's a Sanskrit name. Oh, come on, that's great. Come on. Oh. Please.
Namaskar. Actually, when you talk about the core, also from the publishing side, also that we translate and publish many books of the core. And we don't know each other, but when we come to see each other and we talk about the Indian literature, it can be connect us easily. Like, yeah, that's why this is the thing that when we talk about peace, we talk about translation. This is the bridge. This is the bridge also for the peace and for the everything, no? That like when you're going to do the business or do something, we not go to directly talk about the business or some kind of other thing. But when we talk about, did you listen this song? Did you read this book? I read Neruda, and that we become, feel the commonality to each other, and we can connect to each other. That's why it comes to my work in Thailand. I would like to promote Indian culture, Indian literature, to be the bridge for the relationship of two countries. Because in the, we are different culture, different country, but in Thailand we also have a lot of commonality of Indian, and we have a lot of influence from India. Religious, cultural, we have Diwali, we have so many things similar to India because it's brought to us for a long time back. But we still have a misunderstanding something about India, and some mindset of Thai people still not open much for India. And me, I feel like, okay, we should bring something more to create the good relationship between these two countries. I think the literature also and the culture also can promote this thing. And I feel like when come back to this topic, I feel like now for peace, we cannot rely on the political or military solution. But I think the two pieces also can be the meaningful of the communication and mutual understanding to each other by other way around, And it's come to the translation, especially the literary translation is play a powerful role in the process of it becoming a bridge of the open the space for people from different culture and to recognize, to share the value and experience. As I feel like this is the way of the connection is more directly to the idea of the cultural, cross-cultural management also, which is about to learning to together to balance and despite all our differences. I have to read a little bit because I'm worried about the translation, maybe mistranslation. For me, the literary translation is a bit of understanding. When we talk about the translation, it's not just the transferring the word. It's more the from one. It's not for the translation from the one language to another language. It's more the carry of the soul of the communication. I feel like that, and it's a worldview, because when the translating, it carried it's suffering, it hopes of other culture to bring it to understanding to another culture, and it can feel the emotion and to enter to another world, and this is create the empathy. And the empathy is a very foundation of peace. Yeah, because I'm from both sides of nonfiction and fiction. When you read nonfiction, yeah, when you read the fiction, you got only the fact. But when you read the nonfiction, you can feel more deep into the feeling, the emotion of the story, and it can easily to connect to other country, other story in different world. For me, I feel like I would like to highlight the role of the translation, and it's not the bridge of across the language and the culture, because many conflicts arise from the misunderstanding. The translator can help to ensure the communication in accurate, reducing the suspicion and hostility. And another is the translation, it provides the neutral ground for equality. Without translation, the speaker of dominant language can hold more the power. With translation, every group has the right to be heard with the dignity. For the translation carry the human story, like literature, poetry, and testimony. When it translates, it helps us to recognize our shared humanity. Think of how the poetry of Rumi had touched the millions of people across the culture and religions. This is the way of the human story, and this is the way of the story can touch the human mind. And finally, the translation can be the healing process. Like it conveys not just the word, but the emotion and intention. When the former of adversary hear each other's voice in their own language, the healing and reconciliation is become the possible. Yeah, for the literature can be like literature and cross-culture is learning is in the field of in cultural management. This translation work as a symbolic tool. It teaches us to see through another eyes and reduce the bias and stereotype, and create the shared culture capital, and it can common ground where we can meet. Like I try to promote the Indian culture and Indian literature to Thai society. Example, across history, the translated works such as Ili Weissel Knife or Khaled Hosseini, The Kite Runner. It can help the leader around the world to feel empathy for the victim of violence and reminding us of the necessity of reconciliation. Or the Sufi of the Sufi poetry of Rumi or Yunus Emre. This is one translated into the many languages and has become a language of the heart. And it can narrow the distance between East and West, and Muslim world and other Western world also. For the Indian experience, allow me to give the example, because this is what I give this example to Thai society also about the Indian National Book Trust, about the Jawaharlal Nehru view. This is amazing because, after the independence, 1947, the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru established the National Book Trust in 1957. It's one of the main missions was translate the important work of the knowledge into more than 26 languages of Indian. But it was not just a book. It was about the equality. It means that people from all the linguistic community could access to the same knowledge and the same opportunity for education. And this has been a crucial foundation for Indian development and for peace within such a diverse society. And I give this example a lot for Thai, because when you want to develop the country, if you ignore the literature, if you ignore the knowledge for the people, you cannot grow, you cannot make a developing country. But Indian give us the example, like now 70 years ago, since Nehru started the National Book Trust, India is growing rapidly, it's changed a lot. But in my country, we changed the system of the politics. But 70 years past, nothing is happening. Because we not more take care about the way of education, the way of literature. When you read the same book, the same thing of the knowledge, you can talk to each other easily, and you can bring something together like that, yeah. And for me, it comes back to the translation. It's very challenging because the translation is not easy. The translator must not be just a master of the language, but I feel like it has to be sensitive to the cultural, political, and emotional context. If bias enter the translation instead of building the peace, it can deepen the division. And that's why moral ethics in the translation must be concerned. Come to my conclusion. So the translation is not merely a tool of the communication. It is a bit of the heart and the heart of the society. It allows us to meet in the middle and to listen, to understand, and ultimately to cooperate in building peace together. Thank you, and thank you for listening to my translation also of my mind.
Thank you, Tanisha. Even an original poem is a translation. It's not what I am saying. Many poets believed. When you are writing in your own language, in your mother tongue, or maybe the language that you use, even that poem is also a translation. When we learn to speak, we translate. We desperately translate. We translate our whispers, and we translate the unspoken words. We cannot, you cannot say what you want to say. And that's the most important thing. Then we want to translate in our own writings. We have been translating, poets have been translating from their own language into the written text of the poem, of a novel, a fiction, whatever it is. So, it's nice to see many translators here. I mean, the translators, writers, poets, those who have translated, most of them are writers. And they have their, as I can see, if I look at the audience, a very interesting audience. So many, a poet translator from Kashmir is going off, I don't know why. Please, sit down, sir. Sit down, sir. He's a brilliant poet and a brilliant translator from Kashmir. So, you know, we have so many. Damodar Mozoji is here, who has received the highest award from India. So he is also a translator. So we have Gaur Hari Ji, he is also a translator. A lot of translators I find here. So very interesting. So they are listening to you, and they want to, you know, it's translations through translations in a way. So I believe that a lot of interpretations are coming to us, and a lot of perspectives, you know. And this is really interesting. So I now request, you really want to? No, the full name I must. Yeah, Viva Maria. From India. Viva Maria from India.
Okay, I am a professor, retired, a teacher in front of a mic with an illustrious audience. You can imagine I can go on speaking. So that's why I have jotted down my thoughts. And I'm going to speak. When I got this, and I thank Sahitya Academy for including me into this, in this panel, because I have also translated. My field is Hispanic studies, and I have translated a lot from Spanish into Hindi, which is my mother tongue. So when I got this invitation to speak in this panel, this question which came into my mind was that can the textual exchange of literary works play a role in mediating peace between the nations? And when I started thinking, I thought that peace is the absence of violence, because peace works towards reducing hostilities. I mean, it should, but as you said, it is not working in today's world. And that is what our endeavor should be, that we make it work. So since my field is Hispanic studies, I thought that we should talk about something. There are wars between nations, but there are also conflicts within a nation and within communities. So since I belong to Hispanic studies, I thought I will take the example of Spanish Civil War, which took place between 1936 and 1945, and look at the post-war literature of Hispanic of this period, and look at it from the point of view of translation. Now, the thing is that Spanish Civil War, though ended in 1945, but it ended in the victory of the dictator Francisco Franco, which after that ruled for next 40 years. So the Hispanic society, the Hispanic world, Spanish world, went under the severe, brutal dictatorship, atrocities for almost 40 years. And this is the period which also produced a massive written evidences of people's life during this time. Guillermo is here, and I have a similar work on Chile after the dictatorship. So what I wanted to focus on is that, after all, literary texts or stories are the means by which society imagines itself, and the cultivation of a dynamic literature enables to construct peace around the world, should do that. The post-Spanish Civil War literature is very varied, because in the earlier period of the dictatorship, there was very severe censorship. And people were actually, what they were writing, their experiences, they were circulating maybe in a clandestine manner, or there was a lot of fear about writing anything. But towards 1960s, the censorship got eased little bit, and people started experimenting. And basically what the writers, the method which the writers used was to express themselves through metaphor, through indirect mean, through allegorical narratives, and a completely indirect way of expressing themselves. So, and after Franco died, that is something which I think the Spanish society went through a very tragic period, I think, when we look at it, we look back at it, because after the big dictator died in 1975, in order to avoid the confrontation, in order to avoid the violence and unrest which may happen in the society, because people were after recognizing and looking at the perpetrators of the atrocities next door and walking around on the street freely. So in order to avoid all that, a law was passed, which was the Pact of Forgetting. So the transition period in Spain was the period of Pact of Forgetting, in the sense that people were not, there was not that kind of dictatorship, but there was kind of a clamping down on, you will not speak. So even inside the family, people were not remembering or telling their lives during that period, because there was this kind of law in the society. So what happened? There was another kind of conflict in the society. The conflict was between remembering and forgetting, no? And what was happening? There was kind of a counter memory. The literary critics call it a counter memory. A counter memory was produced at that time. And stories and poems revealed the post-war events, post-Franco period, and it was grounded in a lot of emotional and psychological trauma. They were also exposed hidden truths and forced the readers to face the reality of the past. There's also a whole lot of writers came up in this time. The central figure was, of course, Camilo José Cela, whose two novels which we read when I was studying Spanish in my BA, which was The Hive, La Colmena, and The Family of Pascual Duarte. He is actually the Spanish Nobel laureate who got this. And another thing which surprised me, and Rodriguez will, Guillermo will tell us, that whole lot of women writers came up during that period. No, Nada, I remember reading Nada at that time. And even Nada and Familia Pascual Duarte was written in a literary style which is tremendismo. Remember, it was called tremendismo. It was the Spanish reality of violence which was being depicted in these novels. Then you had Ana Maria Matute, you had Merced Rodoreda, the Death in Spring, then you had School in the Sun, Primera Memoria, and The Soldier of Salamea, and these kind of novels which we read, and in our post-war literature, this time, and then after when I became teacher, we taught these novels to our students under the literary form of tremendismo. Now, the question is, what role can the translation play on the translator, and how the translators can help in the process of peace building and reconciliation? Don't forget that all these societies which went through, whether it is South Africa with apartheid, or whether it is dictatorship in Chile and in the south cone of Latin America, or whether it's Spain, there was always these reconciliation commissions are formed. And these reconciliation commissions, you go there, you present your grievance and all that and all that and all that. So this translators at that time, because that time was also still a dicey time of that period, and in that time, and I will say that even in present time, tú sabes, Guillermo, even in present time, whole lot of books are being, Almudena Grande has written a lot. These are the books which the next generation is writing, which comes under the literary writing of post-memory. We can talk about this post-memory also. And these are the grandchildren, children and grandchildren who are now in free and democratic Spain are able to talk with their parents and grandparents and the survivors of the civil war and atrocities to tell them, to recreate that period. And on the basis of that, these children and grandchildren are writing the novels, stories, and even the testimonies and all of their experiences. So I feel that in that period, immediately after post-Franco, what was happening is that the post-war literature in Spain was written over a very long time, over 40 years, and even in present time it is being written in the form of post-memory. Translation of these works is great help in the process of reconciliation. First, it challenges the official narrative by giving voice to silenced histories, because now, even when the clandestine manner the translation was happening in French or in English, they were being they were being talked about outside. So they were also kind of challenging that memory, and it was facilitating the transcultural dissemination of what I mentioned as counter-memory. So the counter-memory was being exported, being sent through translation. The literature itself and its translation into other languages is an act of remembering and helps in recognizing the trauma of the past. Franco's regime had sanitized the history by distorting or silencing the facts about the civil war. Translations foregrounded the facts of political repression and violence. That's why Spanish and international readers cannot ignore that past. Narrating the text in another language gives a lot of leverage to translator. It can take the liberty of producing a more accurate history than going through the indirect route which was used by the authors. The translation also gives agency to the victims by particularly transmitting the stories of thousands of disappeared persons, voicing freely and fearlessly their suppressed stories and experiences. They contribute the moral rehabilitation of the victims. This is very important because now the victim has the agency of telling the story freely, even though it is in any other language. Spanish post-war literature has also served as repository for memories and trauma that was not only openly discussed now. The translation of these works helps to process and heal the psychological wounds because they document the narrative of trauma and suffering. Collective memory, personal stories of those survived the violence are preserved in these stories and novels. And by translating and presenting them in public through a text, the wounds become visible. So these wounds which were made to be covered at that time is now come out openly. Some novels like Javier Cercas' Soldier of Salamanca have explored the themes of reconciliation through their characters' personal journeys. Because there was this one aspect of reconciliation very much was there. The translation of these works also allowed global audience to witness their narrative efforts to reconcile history, providing a model for addressing injustice. Translation of war narratives and exile provide a transcultural sense of memory. This helps to build empathy for suffering of those affected and draws connection to other global conflicts. For example, La Voz Dormida, it's a novel, very, very famous novel, have a multi-directional approach because they connect the Spanish Civil War with the traumas such as Holocaust. This places the Spanish experience in a wider international context and demonstrate that Spain's trauma is part of the universal experience of conflict. So the literary translation of these narratives export memory to foreign readers who may be less familiar with the complexities of Franco regime, allowing them to gain a deeper understanding of the conflict, and this helps to ensure that the legacy of the dictatorship is not forgotten. I just want to add one more point, and I will finish with the Neruda's poem, if you allow me. And the thing is that in 2027, there was a law passed in Spain, which was the law of recuperation of historical memory. Yeah? Recuperation of historical memory. By this, people now within Spain were able to speak about those time 40 years. But in 1922, I think, the present, the first part of this government, now it has re-elected and come back, they passed a law of, what is that called? The law of democratic memory, I think. Yeah, it's called the law of democratic memory. By this, all the Franco's time sentences and all are nullified. People can now give a DNA test, open the graves of the relatives and do kind of test, and also presented before that reconciliation commission and all. So there is a lot of democratic upheaval to bring back the sufferings of that time really in the real time today. So these are the things which were happening and which is still happening, and that's why I'm saying that the novels of that time are still being written. You talked about Neruda. It so happened that Neruda was a diplomat, a Chilean diplomat. At that time, he was posted as consul in Madrid, Spain. And he had this entire generation of poets and writers, his friends, and he saw this kind of atrocities happening. He, of course, organized a ship, Winnipeg, if you remember his autobiography. He organized this huge ship which left with thousands of Spanish exiled to Latin America and to other countries. He helped in that way. But since he was there, he has a long poem which is called, which English translation is a few things explained, but actually, yo explico algunas cosas. It is called, I explain a few things, he says. I'm just quoting a few verses from that. He says, you will ask, and where are the lilacs, and the metaphysics muffed in poppies, and the rain which so often has battered its words, till they sprouted gullies and birds. I will tell you how matters stand with me. I lived for a time in suburban Madrid with its bells and its clocks and its trees. People spoke of my house as the house of flowers. It exploded geraniums, such a beautiful house with dogs and small fries. Till one morning, everything blazed. One morning, bonfires sprang out of the earth. It devoured all living. Since then, only fire. Since then, the blood and the gunpowder. Ever since then, with traitors and generals, See the death of my house. Look well at the havoc of Spain. Out of dead houses is its metal that blazes. In place of flowers, out of ditches of Spain, it is Spain that emerges. Would you know why his poems never mentioned soil or leaves, the gigantic volcanoes of the country that bore him, because he comes from Chile, and Chile there are a lot of volcanoes. Come, see the blood on the streets. Come, see the blood in the streets. Come, see the blood in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Bibhaji. Thank you so much. And as she concluded with Neruda's poem, even this poem, The Blood in the Streets. And it was translated into Bengali by a renowned Bengali poet, Subhash Mukhopadhyay. So when he brought out the collection of Neruda's poems in Bengali, you'll be surprised to know that we all came to know that we have a new Bengali poet in Bengali language. His name is Pablo Neruda. He became a household name in Bengal through translations. And it reminded me again, and it's not only translations of poems into Bengali language. You just Chile, Santiago, so far away, culturally different, absolutely different. But his poems became, even the protesters in Calcutta streets, the students of the college and universities, they recited Neruda's poems and they brought out Michil. And they marched with the poems in Bengali translation, only because of Subhash Mukhopadhyay who translated. And he met Neruda in Tashkent. At that time, Tashkent was a center of international peace and harmony. Neruda came to Tashkent. So it was such a great moment in Bengal and also in India. For the first time, Neruda was being translated into an Indian language. And he became a household name. Through peace, through ideology, I hope that quote-unquote ideology, the kind of ideology that Pablo Neruda propagated all over the world. And for that matter, even towards the end of his life, he said that in one of his interviews, he said that, I'm not just meant for this side only. I am also meant for that side also. I didn't write for just you, but also people beyond you. And that was a fantastic kind of ideology, beyond ideology. So towards the end of his life, he said that. So the point is that translation, harmony, agreement, reconciliations, these are the things which are working without any agenda. They are, when Kabir was being translated across the country, there was no agenda. When Tukaram was being translated, there was no agenda. But now peace is an agenda. Harmony is an agenda. A quote-unquote agenda is not a very good word for us. It's a bad word for us. So the point is, the poets, as they are talking about the poets and translations, again and again we are surprised that how translation can work for peace. It's so beautiful. Now I request another speaker from India, Vijay Kumar Tarakamala, right? Tarakamala, right. Vijay Kamarji, you know, he's from Hyderabad. And he runs a big festival, Hyderabad Literature Festival.
Good afternoon, and let me begin with a disclaimer. In the introduction, I was introduced as a poet. I have no such pretensions. I'm not a poet. I'm just an academic. And my only qualification for being on this panel is that I translate, and I also write on translation. I translate from Telugu into English, and sometimes, not too often, from English into Telugu. I translated my claim to fame, as it were, are two works from Telugu into English. One is an early 20th century classic, and the second is a more recent feminist work. So these are my kind of qualifications. Also, this is a surprise that I have been promoted in the batting order. I thought I would be the, the tail ender, and you don't expect too much from a tail ender, so I was quite comfortable. But unfortunately, I have been promoted in.
You always expect 6 from tail enders.
Yeah, because they can be irresponsible. Okay. And since I'm an academic, I have a ready paper with lots of citations, etc. But you can ignore the citations as long as you can understand the content. As we are very close to the International Translation Day, which of course all of you know is celebrated every year on 30th September every year. 30th September, since 2017, it has been observed as the International Translation Day. And I thought this is a very happy coincidence that we are talking about the role of translation in peace building very close to the International Translation Day. And as you know, the International Translation Day is an opportunity to pay tribute to the work of language professionals, which plays an important role in bringing nations together, facilitating dialogue, understanding, and cooperation, contributing to the development and strengthening world peace and security. This is the United Nations Charter, which declared 30th September as the International Translation Day. The United Nations 2024 theme of the International Translation Day was Translation, an Art Worth Protecting. To my mind, it draws our immediate attention to the UN's core value of multilingualism, because in a monolingual world, there is no need for translation at all. The importance of translation in a multilingual society is too well established to need restatement. However, I am placing before you two related propositions. One, the protection of translation necessitates the preservation of linguistic diversity. For when everything is the same, there is no need to change one thing into another. As Gandhi said way back in 1928, but in an entirely different context, I quote, "When all religions are true, when all religions have some error in them, and when all religions are almost as dear to me as my own Hinduism, the thought of conversion is impossible." As the American linguist John Lipsky once said, those who live around many cultures and languages tend to be more tolerant than those who don't, and added that preserving linguistic diversity might be a factor in creating a more peaceful planet. The second proposition I am placing before you is that the linguistic dynamic of sameness and difference with which translators engage offers an insight into resolving conflicts and creating a potentially peaceful world. One of the sources of conflict is the fear and suspicion of the other and the inability or unwillingness to deal with difference. In an era marked by the quest for identity, translation remains an irreplaceable remedy against withdrawal from others. For without translation, as George Steiner wrote, I quote, "We would live in provinces surrounded by silence." To translate is to confront the other. I just wanted to continue from there. To translate is to confront the other, the different, the unknown. It also means, through this confrontation with the other, questioning one's own language, one's own culture, and one's self. It is in the confrontation with the other that the self is realized. According to Bakhtin, the self is dialogic, and it is the I for the other through which human beings develop a sense of identity. To quote Bakhtin, I am conscious of myself and become myself only while revealing myself for another, through another, and with the help of another. I cannot manage without another. I cannot become myself without another. To be means to communicate. Unquote. Thus, the existence of the other becomes essential for the survival of the self. And the uniqueness of the self is realized only in relation to the other. Similarly, the preservation of other languages, the preservation of multilingualism, the preservation of linguistic diversity is essential for the vitality of one's own language. We come to appreciate our language and our literature through a greater exposure to other languages and other literatures. Expressing his exasperation at the insularity of the British, Rudyard Kipling wrote, I quote, "And what should they know of England who only England know?" In a similar vein, we can ask, and what should they know of their language and literature who only their language and literature know? Translation allows us to travel from one world to another, and from one time to another, and thereby overcome the tyranny of the here and the now, and the values and biases associated with it. Through translation, texts cross borders and find a new home in another language, in another culture. As the poet R. Parthasarathi said, the translated text thus, I quote, puts down roots in the host language to begin its life as an immigrant in hopes of eventually becoming a native. Unquote. By aiding border crossing, translation plays an important role in negotiating social tensions and language conflicts and combating linguistic chauvinism. Translation thus plays a vital role in both preserving as well as navigating linguistic diversity by both recognizing the translatable sameness and respecting the untranslatable difference. It also acts as a bridge between cultures, fostering understanding and enabling access to knowledge across different language barriers. In this sense, translation creates a more inclusive world. The acceptance of the simultaneity of sameness and difference, and striking a balance between what Lawrence Venuti calls domestication and foreignization, is the key to avoiding hegemony and violence. Derrida portrays the play of translatability and untranslatability as core to the survival of texts and of the cultures that produced the texts. I quote, "A text lives only if it lives on, and it lives on only if it is at once translatable and untranslatable. Always at once and at the same time. Totally translatable, the text disappears as a text, writing as a body of language. Totally untranslatable, even within what is believed to be one language, it dies immediately." To conclude, linguistic diversity is a prerequisite for translation, and the wrestling with appropriation and othering in the process of translation can offer us a lesson for living and resolving conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijay Kumar ji. And now we are going to invite Chile, possibly the most talked about country in this panel. It's again and again we are talking about Pablo Neruda. I whispered into her ears, of my privilege sitting next to her, so I whispered into her, Robert Bolano. I whispered, I'm talking about, for example, how is Raul Zuriza? Yes, okay.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So Raul Zuriza, all these poets have been widely translated into Bengali, and especially in the magazine that I have been editing for last 35 years. The magazine is called Bhasha Nagar, in which we have translated, even my young co-editor is also sitting here, and he is also looking of this magazine, taking care about this magazine. And we have translated a lot from Latin America, and especially from Chile. So Neruda, Nicanor Parra, I spent 7 days with Nicanor Parra, and he was a full-time poet. He was always writing poems. And I asked him, "Are you taking notes?" Well, yes. Whatever I see in India, anybody I meet, I take down his name, I take down his details. When I look at a new tree, I take details about the tree and put it into my poems in future. This is how he was talking about, So Nicanor Parra, I still remember, there is a 6-word poem. A 6-word poem by Nicanor Parra. 70 years ago, it was, in Man. Everybody was watching at the billboard, and the poem was, it was coming like this in the USA, the first word. Next line. Where? Next line. The liberty is a statue. Just imagine that a Latin American poet who can write this poem from Manhattan, and this poem was in the billboard. Everybody was watching at it, and everybody was laughing. And you said, yes, you said that the humor is lost in translation. A brilliant saying, you know. We miss humor, satire in translations. But how powerful Nicanor Parra's 6-word poem, USA, where liberty is a statue. And this was, you know, now from that city, Santiago, the city of Pablo Neruda, city of Nicanor Parra, and so many. You please come.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can stay here now. I'm very comfortable between these two handsome gentlemen. So thank you very much. It's an honor to be part of this panel with new friends and very... Sorry? Over there. Okay, it's working. So it's an honor to be part of this panel with new friends, but also like admired, and she's my idol. So I'm so happy to be here with Professor Viva. Yes. So I was thinking like translation in the same language. I was thinking about that because like my best friend for a long time was my grandmother. She was like my best friend and also my roommate, but she never read a book in her whole life. And she was politically a fascist, I think. Yes, but she was a fan of Pinochet, you know, our dictator. So, but still she was my best friend, and still we have like the most interesting conversation just because we think different, right? So a few years ago I started to do my PhD at the Catholic University of Santiago, and then I realized that once you go into the academy, you begin to learn the language of the academy, right? With the quotations and with all the goods and the bads. But this created a distance between me and my grandmother because she began to not quite understand what I was doing, right? So my first work during my PhD was working for a new cultural center opening after dictatorship during democracy in the lower level of our government building. So it's Centro Cultural Palacio La Moneda. And it's open to all of the audience, right? It's free and it's supposed to be broadened audience. And my first work was to translate what the curator wanted to say into the words on the wall, right? So my first attempt was a failure because the curator said like, this is great, but Foucault is quoted here and it's super smart, but if your grandmother comes to see the show, she will not understand. So I created for my own work the abuela, that is the word for grandmother, the abuela law. So the law says anything that I write should be understood by my grandmother. I cannot create something or write something that she will not understand. Because like is the person that I have like the most interesting conversation, is near to my heart, but she thinks different to mine. And I was so moved when Professor Viva said like she translated El Quijote from Spanish to Hindi because it's your mother tongue, right? So when we translate, even in our own language, we are, how you say, annulling a distance, right? We are bringing someone or something or someone close to our heart in order to understand each other. That is something that has been said in this panel. So the abuela or the grandmother law is also a form of translation in Spanish, right? Because one of the difficulties of translation is segregation, right? This is brilliant, but you cannot understand this because this is in another language. So translation, what does translation is like, it breaks that segregation, right? It's like, this that is brilliant is also for you, and you can read it. You don't have to think like this, but you can read it. And you can have your own idea. And what Pablo Neruda, Raúl Zurita, and have in common, Nicanor Parra, is they were poets, and they are poets as an exercise of freedom, right? Poetry is the exercise of freedom. You get the freedom to express yourself with words. And I was thinking in a novel of Roberto Bolaño when he creates this beautiful metaphor that the dictatorship in Chile was the killing of the poets. So the name of the novel is A Distant Star, right? We have a star in our flag, one just lonely white star. And Bolaño creates the metaphor of the Pinochet, what he did when he killed a lot of people for their freedom of political thinking, was killing poetry, right? As an exercise of freedom. And one last thing that I want to say, that I was really moved by your presentation, is when we kill each other and when we commit these atrocities of war and civil wars and in dictatorships, what is lost is not just the integrity of the human being, but the sense is lost, right? And it cannot be translated. That's the definition of trauma, right? So when something terrible happens, how do we put words on that? How do we put words in killing each other, in war, in like the atrocities of dictatorships, and deny people to express their political views? So I think translation, yes, could be great from going from one language to the other, but we also need to pay attention to how do we translate in our own languages, in the daily speak, right? And I want to say that for ending, like, not to segregate anyone, right? Just to bring people in a common ground that we can like respect our ideas, our point of view, even though we are not agree, but we can, as a poet, exercise our freedom. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I think that if you have any questions, I think the panelists are ready to accept questions from you. If you have any question on translation or peace or war or poetry, whatever, you can. Because we have a lot of translators in the audience, and you must have some questions. Do you like to take questions? Yeah, please. I have one question for you. To begin with, I think that then we can follow with your questions. Under the dictatorship of Pinochet, many poets and writers were thrown into the jail, including Raúl Zurita. I have read his poems written from his cell, from jail, and and many others. But there was a kind of, continuity, even after the dictatorship was over. So how do you feel as a writer? Do you feel, is there any fear beyond the fear that you have survived? The fear beyond this fear you have survived? That's the question.
Thank you. It's a great question, and I don't have the answer, but I can tell you, as you probably know, that Raúl Zurita, who wrote that beautiful, beautiful and terrible poem from his cell when he was in prison, he has said, it has been 50 years from now that he has not left that cell mentally and in bodily experience. He has not left that cell. He's still in prison in some way. And you can tell by his poetry that the poetry is marked by trauma, right? And trauma is not measured but at the same time as like chronological time. Trauma can like be forever a wound. So in a way, we have not got over the dictatorship yet, and probably we will never be.
Oh God, oh God, oh God. It seems to me that Professor Moria has a question. And Professor Moria, you know, he is a great scholar. He was Vice Chancellor. Please, Professor Moria. Please, একটা মাইক্রোফোন দিন ওনাকে এই একটু বাংলা বলার সুযোগ পেলাম হ্যাঁ ওকে দিন
I have a question to my fellow academician, Mr. Professor Vijay Kumar.
Yeah.
You quoted a lot of Bakhtin. And in Bakhtin, there is a very important concept of polyphony. How does that reflect in translation? Polyphony.
Yeah, I actually quoted Bakhtin only once, but still, it's a longish quotation, therefore. Yeah. I think polyphony is very important, and this is something that gets lost in translation, and it's not necessarily from a different language that this gets lost. Even within a language, my co-panelist mentioned how translation is not just from another language, but another time also becomes a very, so kind of a spatio-temporal problem, because if you are translating, let's say, an early 20th century text, right? What kind of, and of course, in a country like India, even one language is never spoken in the same manner. I mean, the same language spoken by different regions is different. Within a region, different castes are different. So there is a caste-specific language, there is a profession-specific language, and there is a region-specific language. But the English that we know is only one English, unfortunately. We do not really have the felicity of different registers, that we have. There have been experiments to bring in, let's say, Petwa or Creole to talk about languages of the minorities, etc., but that didn't work at all. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I don't agree with there just being one English. I think that's obviously a big misunderstanding there. But to provide a bit more, taking from there, a bit more food for thought, because we've spoken about translation as a tool to maybe prevent conflict and promote understanding, empathy, that's a beautiful word, empathy, and also to act as a healing tool after a conflict. But maybe a few words regarding, because it's connected to this, the danger of an agenda in translation, which and I will make my point, which may be visible or invisible, it may be intended or unintentional, and it has to do with, we said we have A and we have B, point A, point B, we have to get from point A to point B, we have a context, but then we have a medium, right? And there's a filter, and the filter, in this case, it's being English. We're filtering everything through English because it's our linked language. I just give you a few examples how the filter acts at a great scale, and I bring in AI here and technology. Just take the Bible, for example. The Bible was written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and in Greek. And a lot of the translations got into Latin has a lot of the Greek cosmovision, intended or not, from the Middle East, Semitic, through the Greek. And then from Latin, it went into the vernacular languages. That also caused quite a few conflicts because there were wars when it was translated into German and the vernacular. Coming to today's world where we may see in a few years AI, machine doing the work. Imagine all of us having a little thing in our heads, in our ears, and everything I say in Spanish, I choose the language I'm more comfortable with, and you will hear it in your own language. You hear it in Bengali, in that particular accent of Bengali, you will hear it in Kannada, you will hear it in English if you want. We are sort of already doing it. We all use ChatGPT to translate or DeepL, and we choose English American, British American, Indian American, Indian English, British English, American English. We choose a filter. So what would happen, or what will happen once this is mechanized? Who chooses the filter and what power of manipulation and the danger involved in it? Suppose we are in the United Nations and there are certain things that cannot be said. Do we add an empathy filter? Who prompts the algorithm? Is it all white males sitting somewhere in Silicon Valley who have taught the algorithm a particular ecosystem or a particular cosmovision? Or if you want to set the tone of a particular conversation, and we have this machine in our head, and I add the filter. There's this filter. I add empathy. Add a bit of more empathy in the translation. So we'll hear it with a bit more empathy. Or add a bit, or censor swearing words. Or now nudity, whatever. And I say something in Spanish which might be critical, so it's censored. So the filter and how this, and whoever creates this filter, that's going to be the big issue, really. Are we going to educate the AI, the machine, with empathy, with values? What's going to happen?
You have.
The word AI was mentioned. In the history of literature, literary movement, there have been various phases. There was a phase of death of an author in phenomenology, or death of a text in postmodernism, or death of a reader, that also in structuralism and all that. Don't you think now, because of AI, now time has come for the death of a translator? Why I'm saying so? Why I'm saying so? Because AI is doing everything, and it's not the sanctity of the translator.
If it is death of translator, then I should say it is the death of Elon Musk.
Well.
Okay, please reaction.
Well, why I'm saying so?
Elon
Just one
Musk,
second.
the man who gave an interview to New York Times and said, "We are ruining our human civilization. Come on, why are you sponsoring all corporations for AI?" Now, reaction from Southeast Asia.
Chairman sir, just one sentence. Just
Reaction
one.
from Southeast Asia.
Chairman sir, one sentence.
please.
Why I'm saying so? I get a beautiful translate. They came to me for review, three short stories.
Right.
And they were in English. They were written in excellent, flawless English. But I knew that this English is not that of the authors.
Yeah, exactly.
So authors, the translators are gone for me. It is AI doing the job.
Yeah, exactly. She is saying we have only 3 minutes, but we have 4 questions. And there will be no answer. And again, AI. You were the
Hello.
man to regulate
Just one simple line. I am a singer as well as author. So when I listen and sing to the Spanish songs, there is very peculiar rhythm, Latin American beats. When we translate any text, should we not only consider the context, but as well as the rhythm? Because ma'am, you are into the translation. So when you translate from Spanish to Hindi, yeah.
Sound is
Yeah.
that when you translate, sound is very important.
Yes.
Especially if you translate words like Neruda or Surita.
Yes.
Neruda, for example, you can differentiate between his love poems and his
Protest.
and his poems in Alviras Baktu Bittu, the Heights of Baktu Bittu. You can see the.
Exactly.
And if you don't reproduce it in your translation, you're not a very good translator. So I don't think there is any good translator of Neruda, for example. I don't think there is.
Thank you.
Even in Vikote, I have small
This is Ratnottama Sengupta. In reply, not in following on after this artificial intelligence thing, I was in a jury very recently. Twice I saw a film, Humans in a Loop. It's about a girl somewhere in remote area of Jharkhand who's working in technology on labeling. And she's trying to label a beautiful Indian tribal woman. When she types on woman, all the Western concept of beauty, fair skin, long skirt, etc., shows up on the screen. When she writes tribal, African tribals are shown. And when she writes Indian, it's red Indians. So artificial intelligence, no matter how intelligent, is not more intelligent than humans.
Hello.
As
Mr.
a
Chair.
translator, for me, AI is still same like this woman explained. I think it still cannot replace of the human translator because we have we said we have empathy, we have sensitivity. It's very important when we translate something. And also, like when we said about the sound, even in the simple sentence, not poem, even the simple sentence, when we translate, we have to hear it, how we speak that sentence. And that is become, when we translate, that we not meet the concept of that sentence. That is how I feel like emotion, sensitivity is very important for art to translate the thing. Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me, Honorable Chair.
And looking at each other face to face.
Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, it was Honorable Chair Sobodda. It was very upsetting that you are not able to pronounce your panelist's name. Why so?
Yeah.
It was very upsetting, Sobodda. You are a scholar,
Yeah.
known scholar.
Okay, let me conclude with a few words. So the next session is, already is here. The panelists, they are here. Just 2 words I will, 2 lines I will just say and conclude. I first thank the international panelists. No, the national, for this session, national is international here. So I thank them all, and I thank you all with this hope that when we discuss translation as a machinery for peace, for harmony, for agreement, for love, empathy, then we should not discuss AI. It's a killer for a poet, for a writer, but I am sure AI cannot be a translator of poetry. It is not possible. I am not an AI expert, but I have understood that every machinery has its own limitations. And these limitations are really, really good for all of us. That even this machinery has great limitations. So, with these words, I conclude this fantastic session, this panel discussion, translation, as whether it is promoting the harmony and peace, that is a big question, but we have realized from this discussion that AI has its own limitations. Finally, human beings have to say what is happening to human beings. Thank you all. See you again.
A very big thank you to the panelists. A quick photo op.